Hi again from Famous Faces with Stuart Lee talking to fascinating people and famous faces. And today, one of my favorite people because she is so aligned with marketing trends, what works, what doesn't work, because she's been doing it for a long time, which is belied by the look of her. Heidi Brauer, how are you?
I'm so good. Thank you. And thank you for saying such a lovely thing.
We met so many years ago when you were, I think, working with Comair. Is that right?
Mm,
Back in the
yes,
Gidon Novick days when the
yes,
airline was just brand new. What
with such lovely brands.
what had you done leading up to that?
Oh, what had I done? Well, I had just come out of probably about 15 years in market research, working with pretty much every single brand in the country at Markinor, which we had just sold to Ipsos globally. And before that, I was in various aspects of pharma and healthcare because I studied a BSc in nursing. So not many people know that. It's normally my like when people say, "Tell us one thing about you that no one would know." But now everybody knows it. So,
So what made you make the move? You had enough of bedpans?
well, yeah, I think everybody has enough of bedpans from the very first. I'm not sorry at all I did that. I studied that degree. It was really marvelous. I learned a fortune. I learned empathy. I learned preparedness. I'm superb in a crisis. Um, and you learn about people. And I think the one of the most fabulous things I learned is how to work in a multidisciplinary team. Because that's really what business is all about, is how to collaborate and how the whole can be greater than the sum of the parts. But how do you know what you want to be forever when you're 17? So you have to do, and this is kind of career advice for the century, is you have to do what you love what you do, and be conscious of when it's not right for you, and then shift a little.
I
That's
sent
what
you
I
a clip yesterday of the importance of a brand and what some companies, some of the biggest companies in the world, have spent on developing the look and feel of their brand. Why is a brand important?
Well, quite simply, and I'm going to try not to use expletives in this lovely, proper interview, but I will. And we all sell the same shit as each other, actually. And in fact, I use a little quote from the Bible that says, "For there is no new thing under the sun." It comes from Ecclesiastes. So if we wrote that in the Bible, however many years ago, um, there really is nothing new under the sun. Pretty much all products are parity products. Someone else is selling the same thing as you. And if you're humble enough to recognize that, then you are smart enough also to recognize you need to build a brand around that, so that you have, again, the whole being greater than the sum of the parts, so that your offering is rich with distinctiveness, so that you are different from your competitors, not by virtue of what the product is, but by virtue of how you put it together. And even for businesses that think that they are unique, you're going to be unique for 5 minutes of your fame, because if you're that good, someone's going to copy you. And so building a brand is a long-term insurance policy, if I can say, um, and is the platform for helping people to fall in love with your brand, which I've now recently realized is what I love to do.
If you think about it, you're driving into a little town somewhere in the Free State, and you can see the McDonald's golden arches, from a mile away, or whatever the brand is. It's the color, it's the font, it's the whole combination. But the brand goes long, far, way beyond just the logo.
Yep.
So how do you get that brand to filter right across the organization?
There's no textbook that can tell you. Stock standard thing with any piece of marketing communication is you start inside first. And I think we forget that. We forget about the staff as the most important um, stakeholder or audience of a brand's work. And I'll never forget driving in the car once, hearing an ad for an ABSA product, and they said, "Call this number, 08, blah, 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 blah." And for whatever reason that day, I wanted a new banking product. And I called the ABSA call center, and that call center agent had zero knowledge of that product. They'd forgotten to tell them. And it was such a humbling thing to realize that actually it is true, you have to start inside first. And when you prioritize inside, it's exponential in terms of the reach and the return on your marketing investment. So, you have to be, I talk about being consistent, persistent, insistent, and relentless about whatever you do. I also say you have to repeat. And when you are sick of your message, repeat it again. And remembering all of the stakeholder sets that you have and make the right investment. Marketing doesn't start with marketing objectives. It starts with business objectives, and we forget that. And I think that my mission in this phase of my career is to bring marketers and business together so that they learn to speak one another's language, because they don't understand each other. Business comes to marketing and says, I want a brochure or a party, heaven forbid, but anyway. And marketers are too scared to ask, what's the business objective? How many widgets are we selling? To whom? At what margin? What return do you want on this investment? Maybe a party or a brochure is not the right thing. So I think I want to do a love match now in this phase between business and marketing, because that's where we'll make magic.
I think there's two things in what you've just said. I worked at Capital Radio, and I can remember our boss talking about getting a message across in a news bulletin. And he said, it's about brevity. But he said, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them that you told them. So it's it's that repetition thing. And in terms of the organization understanding what the objective is, sitting at 7:02 in another of my incarnations, and Nate Kirsch was at the head of the table, and I came up with what I thought was a brilliant idea in the promotions department, and he put his hand up like this, and he said, and that always meant, what's in it for us?
Right.
So maybe a great idea, and well done for coming up with it, although that's not what was said at the time. It was about cut straight to it, talk about the bottom line.
Yep. I mean, it's so interesting that you say that's not what was said at the time. Is the other thing I think that we forget is that human beings need 5 times more appreciation than criticism, and I think that the pace that we live in the world today is that we forget that, and that doesn't mean that when I'm going to diss your idea, I must quickly find 5 things to say. It's like it's just the golden ratio. That neuroscience says my prefrontal cortex needs that more. And it's both in your relationship with your agencies, your relationship with with everybody, your beloved, is to find ways of appreciating more than you criticize. And then people will receive the criticism much better. But that what's in it for me is the business objective. It's the golden, and that makes everybody in service of the same thing. And it's wonderful. I love that. I won't forget that.
You're talking about that these days it's so much more necessary to find a way to say we appreciate your effort, but also that's not going to work for right now, but please keep bringing those ideas. What's changed in media now? How important is social media in the general mix? Is there still space for print? Is there still place for outdoor? I mean, how do you find that right mix? And it's got to be proportionalized, because there are little companies who want to grow. There are big companies who want to stay there and still grow. How does that mix get put together?
It's so interesting, because it wasn't so long ago that I remember writing an article about the new media, which was digital. And it's not the new media anymore. And I think what's happened is agencies evolved, agencies popped up and became new media agencies, digital agencies. Then traditional agencies thought that they were going to lose out, so they also added media. And then it all got all complicated through the line, full service, digital, multi-traditional, blah, blah, blah. Nobody knows. Everybody can do everything. Jargon came into play to the extent that it excluded people. Agencies are completely bamboozling. I can't even say it. that word.
Bamboozling. Yeah, I'll say it for
Yes,
you.
that. Thank you. Clients who just buy anything and are buying impressions and buying, they don't even know what they're buying anymore. Click-through rates, view-through rates. We have to remember always to think of things from the customer's point of view. I have a little acronym, FTCPOV, except I've never made it into anything. But from the customer's point of view, and customers or consumers are whole 360 people who are not only consumers of new media and old media. There isn't. They consume everything. Sometimes I jokingly say digital and analog, just to distinguish them from one another. But even the notion of above the line and below the line, I don't know what this line is anymore. From the customer's point of view, people are 360. And the question needs to be asked, what widget are we selling, to whom, and where will we find them? And we have to go to where they are. And here's where they are. They are driving in the car. Just an example. They're driving in the car and they're going past your billboard. They are walking into the shop and getting a brochure. They are having a coffee and scrolling through Instagram and seeing ads. They are listening to people who are talking at their book club or on the golf course. They are bombarded by 1,000 messages that you have created or are a consequence of what you've created. And ultimately, the sum of those things is what causes them to purchase your product. It's never one thing. And the danger today is that Peter Drucker apparently wrote, one's never sure about if one can ascribe a quote to a person these days, because you can't believe everything you see on the internet. Peter Drucker apparently said, you can't manage what you don't measure. And after my years in market research, I love measurement. But I scribble some of his things out and insert other words. And I say, you can't only do what you can measure. And because people are looking for such great return on investment and the ability to attribute results to something, they're heading down digital only. Consumers aren't only there. And it really comes down to, are you building brand or are you marketing product? And you have to know what the right ratios are for the market segment that you're in. Answer the question, what widget am I selling? To whom and where will I find them? So it's science and art, and the magic happens when you really think with the shoes of the consumer on.
Is there a discernible division between brand marketing and product marketing?
Well, they do link into each other. I've got a lovely little funnel. Everyone's got a funnel, but that says, my first job of work is that people have to know who you are and what you stand for. And what you stand for is becoming more and more important. Sometimes people call it your purpose or whatever it is. But again, it's a distinguishing characteristic from the rest of your competitors. I know who you are. I know your name. And I know something about you beyond your product. Then I can know about your product. I can experience, I want it, buy it, experience it, and then I'll be your favorite. Now, you have to build the brand before you can sell the product. Otherwise, how do I buy a product if I've never heard of you? And there's beautiful science out, nice empirical evidence I've seen most recently from hearing Mark Ritson speak, that endorsed what I know to be true. And that's the ratio of how much you spend on brand versus product differs from category to category. For example, you don't wake up every morning going, I think I'll change my bank today. So therefore, banks need to spend more on brand building. I know who you are and I know what you stand for, and less on product. Whereas FMCG, I think I'll buy tomato sauce today. Different ratio, less on brand and more on product and price. So it is science and it is art and it is fabulous.
You were at Hollard for a bunch of years. That's where I think maybe that's where Brand Mama name came from, is it?
It was actually in between Kalula and Hollard.
Ah.
I was doing some consulting and I was helping a young man with a business idea. And he said, what must I tell people your title is? Are you a consultant? And I was like, that's a horrible word. And he said, I know what you are. You're a brand mama. Anyway, it stuck. And I don't mind. It's lovely.
And that must have been I mean, great company to work for. But you also came up with the purple speedo. You came up with the whole against cancer concept. What is that about? That's just about your heart and connecting with other people, connecting your message and your brand with other people's hearts. Is it?
Well,
What was behind it?
so I have to say that that actually came from our sister company at the time, Etana, and it originally was red speedos, and it started with a dare. Some guys in a pub having a drink saying, "I dare you to run through peak hour traffic in a speedo, and I'll donate money to cancer charities."
Oh,
And when we brought Etana wholly back into Hollard, obviously it had to be purple, and it grew like unbelievably into what it is today, where it's run all over South Africa, very inclusive to raise awareness. And so that is about brand positioning. It's about saying Hollard is a company that positions itself in a category which is very doomy and gloomy.
insurance,
As
finance.
yeah, insurance, it's doom and gloom. And Hollard says we're going to be half full, not half empty. And we do everything with a little bit of quirk and a smile. And what could be more perfectly aligned to the brand than having men run through peak hour traffic in a Speedo to raise awareness for something as desperately in need of awareness levels than male cancers. So it's such an on-brand thing. You can't imagine some of the other more staid insurers doing such a thing. And that's what knowing what your brand is so important. The cake, it distinguishes your layers of your cake from anybody else's and makes your cake more delicious.
I think I'm almost more confused about marketing now than I was when we started this conversation. But, well, no, but what you have done is shown me that it isn't just throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. There's so
No.
much more behind it. And I'm glad that there are people like you steering the marketing processes. And I really loved catching up with you again. Heidi Brauer, thank you very much.
Thank you. Me too.